This is how I'm financial planning in a very expensive year. My fiance and I have some big expenses this year. We're not letting that keep us from progressing towards our financial goals. We're focusing on 3 big pieces of our financial plan to handle these expenses and not harm our finances in any way, as well as still progress on our financial goals at the same time. I'm Mark Palmer,
Oh, hi, Mark.
and I'm here to help you build wealth. I'm an ex-financial professional
Oh, good for you.
hoping to help as many people as possible become financially educated through online sources such as YouTube or other social media channels. You can find me on Twitter or Instagram at MarkPWealth. And if you want more content like this, please subscribe to my channel, like this video. It helps me out a lot, so thank you. Let's clarify something right away. Your financial situation is different from mine. You have different goals, different expenses, different incomes, a different risk tolerance, but you may have some overlap with me, and by watching my videos or listening to me or reading my social media posts, you might start to see things that sound and look familiar to your own situation, and hopefully we can learn from each other through that. So don't use this video as financial advice, because it's not. It's simply financial education that you can use to help spark ideas for your own situation and hopefully improve your own finances. To start, let's catch you up on some of the highlights of my financial situation. My fiance and I share our finances and our financial accounts. We have a mortgage on a house we recently bought that's a little over $300,000 currently at a 3% interest rate. We also have a car loan for approximately $8,500 remaining, and that's at a 5% interest rate. We have a number of big expenses this year, but the biggest one by far is our wedding. All the wedding expenses plus everything else associated with it, it all adds up so quickly. I know people always say that, but you never realize it until you're actually planning your own wedding and you're actually paying money for each and every little piece of it. We're talking thousands of dollars more than the venue, the dinner, and the bar tab. So weddings are very expensive. We're not having a small one by any means. We're inviting a lot of family and friends, so it won't be cheap. It's our choice though, so I'm not complaining about it one bit. It's something that we are planning for, and that's kind of where this video will fall in, how we're juggling that along with our other financial goals all in the same year. We're also taking a honeymoon after our wedding, but thankfully we were able to credit card hack and have the flights mostly paid for through that, and some of the hotel nights were also paid for through our credit card rewards. Helps a ton with the honeymoon, makes our lives a lot less stressful trying to have a very expensive wedding followed by a somewhat expensive honeymoon. Additionally, we're planning to get our second dog after everything settles down after the wedding and honeymoon, and we're going to have a lot of time at home in the fall and winter, and we'll be able to train the dog, but we know that there will be many expenses involved with that, so we're prepping for that. We're making sure our financial plan is set so that it doesn't take us by surprise. As I mentioned, we recently purchased this home, so there are also many home renovations that we have in store. So we're also saving for that, as well as little bits and pieces that we're chipping away at as the year goes on. Those are some of the highlights of the bigger expenses that we have this year, but alongside those, we also have some pretty big goals for our financial situation this year as well. The first goal is to just pay for all the things I've already gone over: the wedding, the honeymoon, the dog, etc. The second goal is to pay off the remaining balance on our car loan in full by the end of our honeymoon. The third goal is to keep our emergency fund fully funded for the rest of the year. And the fourth goal is to maintain our periodic investments into our investment accounts. Now, all these goals are fairly basic, but a lot of people in an expensive year would say, no way are we doing that. No way are we going to be able to, keep investing. No way are we going to be able to pay off our car in the same year that we're paying for a big wedding, honeymoon, dog, etc. But we are going to go over next how we decided that we are going to be able to do this and some of the sacrifices we're making in order to be able to do it. But we want to do it, so this is the plan that we have. All right, so how are we doing this? The first major piece of our financial plan for this year is our budget. Not only are we keeping a budget, but we are kind of shrinking it down for this year until we have these major expenses paid off. I say we're shrinking it down, I'm talking about our variable expenses and more so talking about the wants categories. Things like dining out, things like fun entertainment, things like drinking with friends, anything like that that can add up pretty quickly in price are things that we're going to sacrifice a decent amount of until we have these expenses paid off. You might be thinking, oh, you can only save, a few dollars a month by doing that, but really it can be pretty extreme. We treated ourselves to a dinner recently out, and it was $120 for the two of us. Granted, we got a couple drinks, we got an appetizer, we got some nice meals, but $120, we could go to the grocery store and buy about 25 meals worth of food if we're willing to go and cook that at home with that money. So shrinking down certain categories where you're charged a significant upcharge to do, those things are the things that we're going to sacrifice, and we're going to save a lot of money doing that, and that's going to be extremely crucial for handling our financial plan this year. The second piece is we are going to commit to our savings buckets or our sinking funds. If you're unfamiliar, a sinking fund or savings bucket is a portion of your savings that's dedicated to a certain expense or a certain goal or something that you're saving up for. We have a high yield savings account through Ally Bank that allows you to split off and customize your own savings buckets. So it makes it really easy for us to create these savings buckets or sinking funds and to have money split off into them either manually, or they even have a way to have it automatically happen anytime a deposit is made into the account. I am going to make a future video about these savings buckets because I like them so much. But for now, just know that they do exist, and if you don't have it through your own bank and aren't willing to switch, you can kind of make them on your own outside of your bank's platform. We keep our emergency fund in a savings bucket. We have other funds like home improvement. We have our financial independence bucket, different funds that we have set aside and we're constantly pulling from when we make a deposit into our investment accounts, or like our wedding savings bucket, we're constantly pulling from that to make a payment to the photographer or to buy my suit, whatever it may be at that time. Money is constantly being added to it, and we always have it to pull from as long as there's money in there. So when I say that we're committing to our savings buckets or our sinking funds, I mean that we are not going to adjust the percentages down any lower for any of our big expenses this year. We're going to continue to add to them at the rate we've been adding to them, and we are not going to pull from these accounts for expenses that aren't relevant to that particular bucket. The only savings bucket that we will pull from that isn't always relevant to why we're pulling it from it is the emergency savings, and that's only for when we have it overfunded. So as long as we like about 2 to 6 months of our expenses in our emergency fund, since we do have some other liquid assets that we can use if we need, but we do like to still have 2 to 6 months in this just cash emergency fund savings bucket. But if we're overfunded in there, we are willing to pull from that if we have something that we need to pay for, and then we just replenish it because we're constantly making deposits into the emergency fund as well. We recently took our dog to the vet, and the total expense for the vet was a little more than we were expecting. I cleared out our entire pet savings bucket, and then we also had to pull some from our emergency fund to take care of it. Now, keep in mind, this is all outside of our normal budget expenses. These are savings. These are things that we deposit into our savings before we even start playing around with our budget expenses. So that's why committing to these savings is so big, because we'll always constantly add to it no matter what our expenses are, because we're adding to these savings first before we start playing around with our other expenses. By staying committed to these savings buckets, we know that many months from now we'll either have a large chunk of money saved for these particular expenses, or we'll have been paying over time to eat away at the expenses, and they won't have as high of a balance for us to pay months from now, and maybe they'll already be fully taken care of. So between a tightened budget and our sinking funds or savings buckets, we are able to contribute extra money towards our car payments each and every month, and this amount that we're contributing is going to have us pay off our car before year end. Our goal is to have it paid off by the end of summer, though, because that'll be when our honeymoon and wedding is over. So we'll have to put extra money towards the car and the car payment if we want to do that. And we're really going to need to find different ways to come up with that money, whether it be side hustles. My fiancé does Shipt, which is a grocery shopping delivery app that people use and makes extra money that way. Maybe we'll get some tax return money, or maybe some gift money we'll put towards it if that ever happens. We'll see what happens, but that's how we will have to pay it off, is by any extra money we come across, putting it towards the car if we want to be able to pay it off before the end of summer. The third and final piece of our financial plan this year that is going to help us juggle our expenses for this year as well as our goals is more focused on long-term goals, and that is we are staying committed to our investments. This is something we were not willing to sacrifice. We knew that we had a lot of expenses this year, but we still want to keep our eyes on the prize with our long-term goals. So we are keeping our 401k contributions as they were, and we're keeping, like, I have an employee stock purchase plan that is taken out of my paycheck. We're keeping that as it was. We are still investing $50 per week into our M1 Finance account. It's not much, but it does add up over time. It allows us to easily dollar cost average. It automates our investments there for a taxable brokerage account. We love M1 Finance. We don't want to shut that down. So this is another thing that happens before we start playing around with our budget. So it's another way that we pay ourselves first. We have all this money taken out to invest, and then after that, what remains is what we play around with in our budget. So these three pieces all add up into a big financial plan for us for a big year of expenses. Like I said, some things will have to just kind of fall into place. Not everything will be accounted for in our financial plan, and unexpected expenses will arise. They always do, but thankfully we have our emergency fund for that. Hopefully it will be able to take care of us. We have our other sinking funds for expenses that we do plan on seeing. We have our budget that is tightened at the moment because of all these big expenses. And in the long term, we've still got our investment accounts. We're still adding to those. So over time, we should be building wealth that way. And if we ever really needed, these accounts are pretty liquid, and we should be able to pull from them in the worst case scenario. But knock on wood, let's hope that doesn't ever have to happen, and we can continue to grow our wealth through these accounts. Hopefully this video helps spark some ideas for you in your own financial situation. Maybe you're getting married soon, or planning to, or maybe you have some other big expenses and you don't know how to juggle them with your own personal financial goals and situation. So if this video helped, I'd love to hear about it. If you would like to learn more, I'd love to hear about that as well. Any questions or comments you have, please put them in the comments below, or you can always reach out to me on Twitter or Instagram at MarkPWealth. If you enjoyed this content, please subscribe to the channel, like this video. Really appreciate your help with that. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.